Sanjay Lazar, aviation expert, joining us for a little more clarity on this. Sanjay, the threat mails, threat calls that airlines have received, of course, they've got to take strict action and ensure that passengers are safe. That's their priority, and that's what they've done every time. Moved the flight to an emergency landing and deboarded passengers, checked, and then got them back again to continue with their journey. This kind of reworking every time that this happens, the losses that aviation or an airline faces, do give us the magnitude and the intensity of damage a hoax call like this can cause.
Hi, thanks for having me. First of all, it's condemnable, the amount of these bomb scares that they're getting. We've had, I think, 10 in the last 2 days and 5 today, so that's about 15. I don't think we've had that for the previous 6 months. So I also look at the connections to the other terrorist organizations that we've been dealing with in the last week. The country has been dealing with. Secondly, this is an inevitability of aviation. The moment an airline or a government or an agency gets a bomb threat or a terrorist threat, you have to divert and land. And it's obviously going to cost you in terms of fuel, in terms of landing, in terms of delays. Very often, like we've seen in the Chicago flight where they landed in Canada, you have to put up passengers sometimes. There's huge costs. And the costs involve landing charges, they involve fuel, they involve hotels. But that is not the only cost. The cost is the human capital. There is stress on passengers, there is tension. There's also the worry of whether or not there is a device on board. And our regulations by the DGCA and the government make it clear that you have to do a clean sweep of the aircraft when such a bomb threat comes up. You cannot take any chance. The pilot in command and the airline do not take any chances, and it is the correct thing to do. My suggestion, and sorry.
No, just my question here. Well, we know that this is protocol that the airlines have to thoroughly check and sanitize the aircraft before ensuring that they continue with their journey. But the number of calls that have come in the past, these hoax calls, we've hardly ever seen anyone implicated for it or a conviction. There's really no deterrent. This seems to be a more common affair.
Well, there is a deterrent in the law that you can be treated as for terrorism activities and imprisoned up to 7 years. But the problem is that is there any detection? All these calls seem to be coming into some numbers or to some, emails are coming. Are the government agencies tracking them down? Are they able to track them down? Because you can't expect airlines to have such sophisticated tracking equipment where they, cybercrime tracking. I think the government needs to chip in with its IT department and help airlines or set up, inbound numbers on which they receive where they can track it. We've already seen that, through social media, courts and the police have tracked down Twitter users, Facebook users, even anonymous mails and stuff like that. So I think we need to sharpen that aspect and of course, surveillance. Pre-departure surveillance needs to be much more stronger so that you're confident that the aircraft is sanitized before you depart.
It's really shocking, Sanjay Lazar, because hoax bomb threats in India is really not uncommon. This has been on, and it constantly comes in. It disturbs the atmosphere. There's so much panic and worry. At this point, what would be your advice maybe to the authorities who are overseeing this? You did mention on detection and how that should be necessary, but somewhere where we could be lagging in controlling this menace.
Well, I did post a couple of days ago when the Indo-Canadian diplomacy war broke out that, immediately we should have tightened security at all airports for all flights. Airlines must be ready to advance additional security checks because don't forget the worst terrorist bombing we've ever had came from there. And, people have forgotten that yesterday was the anniversary of the death of Talvinder Singh Parmar. So that's, there's a lot of scope of linkage there. You need to start checking aircraft, cleansing aircraft. We need to have a way of monitoring inbound phone calls to airlines and airports, through cybersecurity, like I said, by the government authorities, which I think is not in place at the moment. These are the only two things Other than that, I can tell, passengers to please bear the burdens you're facing and the stresses, because this seems like it's not ending anytime soon, unless we catch a few of these guys and make an example of these hoax callers. But it's shattering for, somebody. I got calls from people who were stranded overseas because of this. They're scared, and it's sad. I just hope we get a handle on this.
Has there been any instance, Sanjay Lazar, of a man or a woman who's been pulled up, has been caught for making a hoax call like this? We heard there's some reports doing the rounds that one college student was caught just a few days ago for making a hoax call. But otherwise, just to make that person a poster so that and the action taken against that person should be a deterrent for people wanting to do this. Because you are looking at threats coming up on X platforms, on Facebook, on Instagram, threats coming on social media, which is taken into account by the agencies, and then this whole way to ensure safety for passengers.
I'll answer this in the reverse. Our threats on X, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram can be tracked within minutes. The government just has to, because there are already High Court orders, in Delhi High Court orders in place, they are bound to give up the IP address and the owner and the user. Even if it's a fake user, you will get to them, because they have to have a verified email or a phone number. So that's trackable. So that's one thing. The second, whether it's overseas or in India, you can track it. Number two, examples. There have been quite a few examples of people with hoax calls. I don't know if you remember the young Gujarati student out of Liverpool, who was traveling to Spain with his friends and casually remarked about, they were on a WhatsApp chat, private school WhatsApp chat group, who said they wanted to bomb the aircraft, and they boarded the aircraft. Before they crossed into Germany, on the way to Spain, they were escorted by Air Force jets, fighter jets. They were brought down. He was tried and paid a huge penalty and was supposed to go for imprisonment. I know they appealed. So it's not unheard of that there are tracking technologies for phones within airports, outside, or calls being made to airports that exist in other countries. And I know India has that capability. We need to start doing that. There have been a few cases in India as well who've been tracked down. There was the famous guy in Jet Airways case where the person was, made a bomb hoax call because his girlfriend was flying out, and he got caught. He's a Gujarati gentleman again in prison. There are a couple of cases in India.
Imprisonment, not just imprisonment. Sanjay Lazar, we heard the Air India. In fact, the airline has issued a statement saying that we want to take strict legal action and ensure that person is also legally liable to bear all the expenses and the losses that the airline has faced.
Absolutely, they must. And Air India is right. Air India must, if they get hold of these people, they must make them pay all the costs. Imagine the cost of diverting a 777 bound for Chicago to, Inuit, which is almost in Iceland, in the northern part of Canada, and then getting all the passengers. Of course, they came on the Canadian Air Force aircraft, but huge costs involved, huge costs. And runs into lakhs. It's not, in thousands, it's lakhs and lakhs of rupees. So I would hope that somebody is tracked and somebody is held to, account on this.